Have you ever heard of a term called geographic arbitrage? If you know what it means and you use it in your own personal life, then you could literally make millions of dollars more than people like you in your field doing the exact same work. Geographic arbitrage is simply moving to where your services are needed and having a lot higher income along with lower expenses in exchange for living in one of these out of the way kind of cities that's going to demand your services. Geographic arbitrage is most common in the healthcare world. So, for example, if you're a physician or you're a dentist and you want to live in Los Angeles or New York City, my advice to you is if you care about money, don't. If you live in one of these big cities where there's a dental school or a medical school, you're going to have tons of people that are graduating. They're going to be competing with you. And a lot of people that are high income professionals that have lots of education, like yourself, want to live in these big cities. So people will even move to these cities coming from other programs that were not even in that geographic location. So if you are interested in getting a good income for your efforts, do not live in the big city as a healthcare professional. It's just probably not a good idea. One rule of thumb is if you drive at least 2 hours away from the nearest international airport, you'll have a lot better setup in terms of your costs for your business will be a lot lower, your income can be higher, and you'll also have a lower cost of living instead of having to pay city taxes and having to pay higher costs for various things that you have in an urban environment. Now, I understand that a lot of people just want to live in cities and they don't care that they make less money, and that is absolutely okay. I'm not at all saying that life is all about money. I'm simply saying that you should be aware of that, especially if you're choosing the career and you haven't already made up your mind yet, but also you should be aware of that so that you know what you're giving up and you know what options are out there. If you really like the big city environment, you could do anything, and you maybe don't particularly care for science as much, but you have good grades and you're a really top performer, then going to a top law school and going and working for a big law firm is still an option. People will make more money as a lawyer in New York than they will as a lawyer in, say, Columbus, Ohio, simply because big law salaries start at $190,000 at the top firms, which you can only get access to if you go to a top law school. And then the salary scale can be somewhat exponential. So I have a lot of friends actually that did big law careers, and they made $200,000, $300,000, even $400,000 for say 7 to 10 years, and they saved up a lot of money, and now they're kind of paid off their student loans. Now they're looking at taking a step back and taking a more relaxed lifestyle because they've saved up a lot of assets early on in their career. So and another thing to think about is law school's 3 years, and you won't have that long residency and fellowship training period afterwards either. So you can earn money more quickly. In theory, you could probably be younger in a big city and may have made more money going into a non-healthcare field than going into a healthcare field. I mean, certainly too, going to work on something like Wall Street or in finance, graduating with a top undergrad degree and just going straight into industry is also an option if you want to live in a big city. If you like the idea of living in a rural location, then healthcare field could be one of the best decisions you ever make financially, because in these rural areas there's not necessarily a ton of really great jobs for people that want to work and live in these areas, and because of that, costs are lower, real estate prices are lower, and with all these folks that need healthcare services that are going to live in these rural areas, they don't have physicians that have this high education or dentists that have this high education that necessarily want to live there. So they're stuck driving an hour or 2 hours in some cases for specialist care for sure, and maybe even for primary care in a couple situations. So just as an example, I've seen OBGYNs make $200,000 and I've seen OBGYNs make $500,000. And the only difference is living in a big city on the West Coast versus a rural city on the West Coast. That's really fascinating to me that you could have that big of a difference in incomes solely based on location. So if you really want to make the most of your career and your educational investment, think about geographic arbitrage. Think about living in a place where your incomes are going to be way higher and your costs are going to be way lower. Or if you have to live in the big city, then consider choosing a career that actually fits with the economics of the big city and that rewards, big city kind of salaries. So take that to heart and make good decisions about where you're going to live.